Good afternoon, dear friends from the media. Mr. Chief Executive has just delivered the policy address for 2018-2019 because we have got full attendance today. So please identify yourself when you ask questions. And also, in order to evenly distribute the opportunity of asking questions, please only ask 2 questions each. Dear Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from Shenhua Yaobao. As the gaming license gradually expired, so in next year's policy address, have you got any plan to further regulate the gaming sector? As for the gaming license, the casino operation license, have you worked out the limit? How many licenses are you going to issue? As we all know that the midterm review for the gaming sector has already been done, and we have widely consulted public opinions. So we look at the following points. To ensure healthy development of the gaming sector, first, we must follow our 5-year plan, which is to make Macau a world-class tourist destination. And the gaming sector's development is going to be in line with that development, is to serve that purpose. Secondly, we hope that the gaming sector will enhance its non-gaming elements. So non-gaming element and the gaming elements should be complementary to each other. Thirdly, we have already openly expressed this point. After the gaming license are due, we will reopen the tendering procedure, and the Secretary for Economy and Finance has already expressed his view. We still have some work to do. First, we need to review our legal framework, our regulations, as we all know that the laws need to be updated. That includes regulating the gaming sector and also regulating the employees. And that's all to serve the purpose of long-term development. How to make sure that the gaming sector's development is going to support the overall policy of making Macau a world-class tourist destination and diversify Macau's economy. For the time being, we are not at the point of releasing the measures. So once we work out the plan, we definitely will release it in due course. The lady in the white shirt. Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from TDM Radio. My name is Wang Choiteng. As you can see, that next year's policy address, we especially will look at making major officials accountable. And why you especially mentioned that in this year's policy address? Because in the past, the MSAR government has always looked at the accountability system for major officials. But in the past, it didn't actually talk about reviewing the system. Has it got anything to do with the Typhoon Hato disaster? Because you felt that major officials did not manage to respond promptly to the disaster, so now you emphasize reviewing accountability system. A series of regulations concerning accountability of major officials has been ongoing. In the last 2 years, we have been stepping up with third-party assessment and also efficiency and effectiveness review. And during the process, we especially need to look at the accountability of major officials. Now, the SAR government has already come into operation for up to 18 years, and we have listened to lots of public opinions, and we have reviewed these opinions. We especially look at our system, and enhancing our accountability is very important. The current regulations and current legal framework, as we all understand, civil servants of different levels, there were different regulations. For example, those civil servants who need to make themselves accountable to the public are the senior officials. We want to look at it at the policy level. At the policy level, we need to review our government officials' accountability system. And we've also done some internal review and analysis. We look at the current legal framework we review our current legal framework and see how to improve it. So in today's policy address, we especially introduced this work, especially focus on government officials' accountability system. The lady in the TVB, Wang Qiming. And I especially want to ask legislator Sou Gahou, is it the first legislator who is accused of committing the crime? And what if he got deprived of his eligibility as a legislator? And actually, this case has already entered legal procedure. I am not going to comment on the case, but as I understand that the Legislative Assembly has got its own regulation, and we need to respect the regulations of the Legislative Assembly. As we all know the case, we all know when it happened. It didn't happen recently. The police, Macau police, they would collect evidence, and the case will be handed to the prosecution office. If the prosecution office intend to pursue, usually in the normal cases, they don't need to report to the chief executive. The prosecution office has a proper mechanism. Everyone, all citizens are equal when we come to the rule of law. So if we hand it from the police to the prosecution office, and prosecution office will hand it to the court, and everything will be handled in accordance with law. I'm not going to make further comment on it. From Portuguese newspaper. I'm Costa Santos. I'm from TDM. And now, you only have 2 more years to go before the term of your office is due. So about the new hospital and Taipa, any progress? Do you think, when you established this, when you started this new term of government, you mentioned this plan, and when will the project be completed? Thank you very much for your question. As for the Taipa clinic, the complex is already 40% completed. We very much hope that in 2019, by the time I complete my term of office, I can see the completion of the complex. I got great expectation of the project. When you ask me this question, on the one hand, I hope that the complex will be completed. I also hope that our public housing project will be completed. I also hope that we will reopen application. We also for the public housing projects in especially A area and B area. Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from Bloomberg News Agency. Last year, you anticipated this year's gaming revenue would reach 200 billion Partakus, and now in the first 10 months, the gaming revenue had already exceeded that amount. So what would be your further expectation? And last year, this time, we expected 200 billion Partakus gaming revenue. And this year, actually, we have exceeded the target. Gaming revenue, again, on the upward trend. Why? I think there are several factors. First, the tourism ambassador project has created a lot more attractive tourist products. Macau, the blend of East and West, and the historical center, and all these are attractive. It's on the UNESCO World Heritage List. We also have complex that are and also integrated resorts that are up to international standard. So tourist arrival reached 30 million. So very much hope that we are confident that next year our economy will be on the upward trend, and we also expect gaming income will continue to increase. Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from Macau Daily. Mr. Chief Executive, over the years, you have mentioned repeatedly that young people starting their own business and also buying their own apartments. They need to do it step by step. However, house prices are still rocket high, and the prices constantly multiply. So the committee wonder whether you are going to release some measures, for example, vacant property tax and so on. So why such measures are still not released? Are you worried that under the current circumstances that the housing market will and also property prices will continue to multiply? And also in May this year, still emphasized the tough measures. But why still we haven't seen the real tough measures? When is the time to release these tough measures for the housing market? You also hope that you can reopen application for economy housing in Zone A. So do you expect that Zone A? Oh, sorry. Well, I got one more question still about Zone A. Social housing project. And your policy address, you said because the UNESCO report suggests that because of suggestion made by UNESCO report, the progress in the construction of social housing in Zone A has been slowed down. Could you give us more information for that? Macau is on the World Heritage List, and that is UNESCO World Heritage List. So how to protect our World Heritage and how to work out the buffer zone? So most of our projects need to be, including housing projects, ought to be reviewed by UNESCO. But I can frankly tell you, in Zone A, currently, those buildings, those new projects that have been approved, actually our Cultural Bureau has got no objection to the housing projects currently submitted. UNESCO will only review the proposals, but it doesn't mean that the UNESCO will prevent us from developing the area. Well, you asked me too many questions. Sorry, I can't remember all of them. As for the housing market, I think very importantly, as a matter of supply and demand, there are three phenomena, and they're different from the past. First, in the last year, most of the transactions involve local people buying their own properties. Second, they also involve local people buying their second homes. Third, bank mortgage ratio is relatively normal. So we can see that more and more local people are investing in the local market. Invest in the housing market. Not all of them are for owner occupancy. And also Secretary Rosario, Secretary for Transport and Public Work, also indicated that as soon as we get land supply, as long as we can, we will definitely more effectively balance the housing market. However, I have to emphasize that Macau is a free economy, is an open economy. And what you have pointed out just now, we will continue to pay attention to it and how to adequately make adjustment to the housing market. Zone A, till 2017, end of 2017, we have already completed relevant work, and now we are working out the blueprint. We hope in 2019 we will reopen application for economy housing. Well, I emphasize each person should only ask one question only. Well, I'm from TDM. That's about birth allowance. It has been increased to 5,000 Patakas. Actually, in our five-year plan, we have this policy to encourage people to have children, to give them more support. So for every baby born, the parents can apply for a subsidy of 5,000 Patakas. and also the education system, the healthcare system, all try to support this policy, which is to encourage people to have more children, to enhance the purpose to increase Macau's natural birth rate. Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from Macau Asia Satellite TV. And just now you mentioned about accountability of officials. In the past, I didn't talk about accountability for 局长、厅长. In the future, would there be more government officials who would be dismissed because of mistakes they make? I think in response to your question, I need to explain about Cultural Bureau, the situation of Cultural Bureau. Secretary Tam Jun-wing had already announced that the case had already entered disciplinary procedure, and that involves three leaders of Cultural Bureau. As for the Feng Shui-kun, the former director of the that CCAC has already been involved, and that's also entered disciplinary procedure. In the future, we'll also, in accordance to needs, to make officials accountable. Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from Lotus Satellite TV. After Hato disaster, the government announced that the border gate bus station would take 2 years to be renovated. And now the border gate area, the traffic is still chaotic. And that undermines Macau's image as a world-class tourist destination. So has the government got any solution to it? Well, I will answer it in 2 ways. First, the former Secretary for Transport and Public Work had done a study about the transport system of Macau. And now after the Hato disaster, we reviewed the system. In fact, the border gate bus station, the Secretary for Transport and Public Work has already worked out a plan to do major renovation of the station. And the Typhoon Hato had wreaked havoc, has caused major damage to the station. And why now we still cannot release the timetable for reopening the border gate bus station? That's because we have to wait till we have gone through the tendering procedure. Because if now I say it definitely will be completed in 2 years, and then by the time, if it's not completed in time, again, there will be accountability. And you will blame me why I made this promise. So I have to make sure that by the time I make the promise, I'll be able to deliver it. In the end, we still have when we can actually complete the reconstruction of the border gate bus station. We have to wait till we complete the tendering procedure. So please be patient. We will try to release the timetable as soon as possible. And now I am not in the position to make the promise. But as we all understand that it's a question that we all concerned about. And that is of the top priority. I very much hope that I will have good news for the public very soon. From Simon Daily. Mr. Chief Executive, I will still want to follow up this border gate bus station project. You said that the tendering procedure will go for, the principle is to go for the lowest cost. And the Secretary for Transport and Public Work estimate that the minimum would cost 100 million. We also are concerned about the issue of bus fares go up, the increase of bus fare. So is it because the government is under financial pressure that you need to increase bus fare? Because bus fare is closely related to the well-being, the livelihood of people. In your policy address, you say that the public, we must not undermine public, the well-being of the Macau public. Well, about the bus fare is to be discussed in the committee, the relevant committee. And definitely we still have to go through consultation. It's not that we say that definitely we have to put up bus fare. Currently, the SAR government spent 1 billion on buses, on bus service. So now we are only at the consultation period. As for the cost of constructing and renovating the Border Gate bus station, I can say that based on my experience, very often the government would go for when they review the proposals, they will look at low cost and also the shortest period of construction. So these would be the measures for reviewing the proposals. First, I have to emphasize that it's not definite that we will put up the bus fare. Second, at the moment, I can't comment on whether 100 million to renovate the Border Gate bus station is too much. I need to get more information. Actually, as I listen to all your opinions, I can tell two things. You want good quality, and also you want the problem to be solved as quickly as can be. And we are doing our best. The Secretary for Transport and Public Work and the Office for Major Construction Projects are all studying various plans and how to get things done as quick and also ensure quality. You all understand that in the past, there had been some improvement projects, improvement work on the Border Gate bus station. However, the result was less than satisfactory. We very much hope that this time, real improvement will be made. Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from London Media. And still about public housing. And this time, there are a few plots of land earlier committed to social housing seems to have disappeared from this year's planning. So could you explain why? And also you said that you still got 2 years to go before you complete your term of office. So what would be the ratio between economy housing and social housing? As you all understand that our policy is social housing would be the main thing, supplemented by economy housing, the home ownership program. But in the end, we very much hope that most of the Macau citizens would own the places they live in. Economy housing, after a number of years, certain number of years, they can be sold. And now, policy about economy housing would be reviewed. And social housing, the policy is being debated in the Legislative Assembly. We still emphasize we have to adhere to the principle of putting social housing first, supplemented by economy housing. I hope that within my term of office, we can fulfill the promise. Secretary for Social Affairs for Transport and Public Work indicate now we plan to build 45,000 housing units. We also hope that the media will help us in Zone A, that 28,000 public housing units, that the number has never been changed. The consultants, the advisors, when they wrote the reviews and they have their own standing. However, from the time I stand for chief executive election, my principle has never changed. I again hope that you will help us emphasize our policy has never been changed. Right, from the lady from Portuguese media. Good afternoon. I'm from TDM Radio. About the judiciary organization law is being proposed for senior officials for prosecuting senior officials. Would they go to the Court of Final Appeal? About the organization framework, and that has been put in the policy address. And now we go through the reviewing procedure, and would go through amendment. Because the Macau SAR has already come into operation for 18 years. During this process, we noticed that there are points to be improved, to be updated. And some of them have got to do with improving efficiency. So that has got to do with training and also has got to do with accountability. So these questions, I very much hope that after we make amendment to the organization framework, we would further enhance efficiency. Mr. Chief Executive, I'm from Hong Kong Daily. My question is about the light rail system. In this year's policy address, you indicated that on Taipa part, there's still no timetable for completion. And about Macau Peninsula part, I haven't mentioned anything. So does it mean that now there is still no clear message about the construction of light rail on Macau Peninsula? For the time being, it is within the domain of the Secretary for Transport and Public Work. There are a few decisions. And first is to establish a company to be in charge of the operation and management of light rail. We also need to work out a legal framework. And just now you asked me about the route. What I can tell you is we are doing our best as by 2019, the Taipa part will come into operation. As from Taipa to Barra, Macau Peninsula, and from Barra to Border Gate, that's going to be the next step. There is a plan that the light rail would go from Taipa to Barra. In 2019, it's expected that the Taipa part will come into operation. The lady from Portuguese media sitting in the back. Good afternoon. I'm Anish from Luso News Agency. My question is, why this time civil servants' salary increase, the salary index point, the increase is so small? If you say inflation rate is 5%, and why civil servants, how come civil servant salary increase cannot catch up with that? Thank you very much. Just now, I already mentioned gaming income. And last year, we expected that this year's gaming revenue would be 200 billion baht, and now it's already reached 230 billion. As for civil servants' salary increase, in the last few years, we've been constantly listening to opinions of the special committee for that. And we also look at our government coffer, our buying power to make the decision. We listen to opinions from various sectors, including the civil servants. And actually, every time we talk about salary increase, it's very difficult to please everyone. Some say it's too much, some say that it's too little. Some say that they shouldn't get salary increase at all. So we look at the real situation. The current rate is reasonable. However, we have to remember that the civil servants are the most important asset of the SAR government. They are the ones that keep the SAR government going. Mr. Chief Executive, I am from Lei Puyu. And still about the gaming license. And next year they'll be due. So do you think that next year you can actually release the details for the tendering procedure? Or are you going to do consultation? And are you going to work out some plans? As for the number of gaming license, and that is also something that we all care about, do you have any comments on it? For the time being, we are still doing several major works. First, our legal framework, our regulations need to be reviewed and amended. We will also increase some regulations. Second, we need to put things in perspective. We have to see if it can support Macau's policy to become a world-class tourist destination. Third, we need to see if they can increase the non-gaming element. Currently, all the gaming license, we have to see those current holders of gaming license, whether they have fulfilled their promise, whether they have completed their projects. I believe by the middle of next year, it'll be a good time for us to release the relevant details. Thank you. Last two questions. Two more questions. Sorry. That is about prevention of flooding. I look at the policy address that looks like next year you still haven't got any concrete plan for next year. So does it mean that next year all we have is the current system in the face of natural disaster, namely typhoon? I think in the short term measures are already in the policy address. We will also enhance our civil prevention system and alert system. We will do our very best to improve our mechanism. In fact, since Typhoon Hato, we have never stopped improving our mechanism, including the meteorological bureau and improving our infrastructure, improving our civil protection system. All for the purpose of improving our civil protection system. There are some short-term measures, there are some mid-term, some long-term measures. We are very grateful to the Guangdong government. They give a lot of support. Especially the water channel and the seawall is a big project. We do not expect it to be completed in a few months, and that is a relatively long-term project. So that is why this time we indicate that there are short-term measures, there are also long-term and mid-term measures. But very importantly, we have improved our alert system. What is the Guangdong government giving us? Yes, the Guangdong province, provincial government is giving lots of support to us. So whenever we face natural disaster, they give us, resources and give us technology and reconstruction, relief work. Guangdong province have been giving us lots of support. There were altogether 21 county officials in Guangdong province. They all support the provincial government's policy and give us support. Thank you very much again for giving the opportunity to Macau Daily. I still want to ask about public housing. We all care about it. And just now you mentioned that there will be new housing project involving the swimming pool area. and include a plot of land in central Taipei. And altogether, there will be 1,600 housing units, and also Hua Wailong, and that would be 15,000. But then looks like there is already a reduction of 3,000 housing units. And also, I want to ask you, the new type of social housing, you will further look at the supply and demand. And last year, you mentioned that you are going to look at supply and demand, but this year, in this year's policy address, we see no follow-up of that. I think we need to look at land supply. We also need to look at supply of housing, social housing. Still, the principle is social housing is a priority. And also Macau land for Macau people, and helping young people to get on the housing ladder. I have to say that as the SAR government is fair. Even to build social housing, we still need to go through various procedures. For example, environmental assessment and also urban planning committee. If we submit a proposal and the environmental protection bill say that is not satisfactory, then we have to review our project. For example, Hua Wailong project, we plan to build 8,000 housing units there. However, now it's been reduced to 6,500. I think the media understand to know it even clearer, even better than I do, because the 8,000 housing units would have, as the environmental assessment report indicate, that building 8,000 housing units on Hua Wailong, and that is going to have negative impact on the environment there. So we have to even have social housing project need to go through all the procedure. It still need to work within the legal framework. But I have to say that major social housing project would be our top priority whenever we reclaim any idle land, and the priority will be given to social housing. The land belongs to the nation. The land belongs to Macau. Most important, housing is the basic, is the bare necessity. I have to admit that housing prices are too high. So if you decide to buy property, you have to look at your own financial situation. And the government will do the best to help, but do give us some time. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.